Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Julie.
How are you? I'm giggling, you guys, because, or ladies and gentlemen, or all audience. I'm gonna start saying y'all because that encompasses everybody. I'm giggling, y'all, because Tammy and I already had a full-on conversation before we ever got on recording here. So not about anything, just about personal stuff, which you guys don't care about, I'm sure. I mean, in a compassionate way, I'm sure you do, but that's not what you're here for. Oh my God, I think I'm just rambling this morning.
That's okay. That's okay. Welcome, everybody.
Tammy,
Thank you
would you kindly introduce us?
for us. Yeah, so we are two psychic moms, Julie Hawkins, whichever way it's going to show on the thing, and Tammy Langowski. For me, you can find me, tammysintuitive.com. I'm an intuitive advisor to your questions. Audience clairvoyant. I do lots of stuff on social media with TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook with Tammy's Intuitive Services. For channel messages and such. So, Julie, how about you? How can they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is I'm looking for my pen. Is if you know me, you're connected with me on Facebook. I don't do a lot on my Facebook biz page, which is probably ridiculous that I have it, but you can friend me. We'll see. And if you're looking for me personally, you can just email me through my site. So yeah, it's been busy. We've been doing a lot of readings, huh, Tammy?
Yeah. Catch up for me from and thank you everybody who has who's had a reading with me. But catching up from when we both were sick there for a while and all that, and playing catch up with readings and also. Thank you so much, everyone.
And I guess the end of the year. I mean, I used to take off when I worked at East West. I would always take off like the last 2 months of the year because it was the biggest waste of my time to sit there and do nothing other than I often would bring in my laptop and just write because I was working on my book at the time. But it's a slow time for I'll say for me. Is the end of the year a slower time for you?
It just really depends. I mean, it's sometimes it can be, but not necessarily, I find. Yeah, it's interesting.
Look at you.
Well, I mean, I think that just is true though, what you're saying. It can be, for that period.
But then the beginning of the year, it's all fresh and new, and everybody wants like all kinds of guidance. So, which is good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I have to share something. So, I mean, a lot of my database is made up of people that I gave readings to through East West at like psychic fairs and things like that. And so I had somebody come to do a reading just recently, and she said, I always just, I'm human. I need to hear validation just like anybody else, right? And she said, I mean, this was like 4 years ago even. And she said, yeah, you gave me a reading and said I was going to meet the man of my dreams, and she said, sure enough, 9 months later I did, and we're engaged. And I'm like, thanks for telling me that. I really needed to hear it.
Oh, it's great to get the validation. We do appreciate it for sure. I gave some along that idea. I gave some to somebody from way, way back in mid 80s.
Wow.
That I know she was from our area here, and she had gone out to Mazatlan, and she was doing readings through a hotel. So when I was out there with my girlfriend, she had given me a reading about major love affair right around the corner, and she gave me some more things about it. But that's when I met my husband. It was literally like 2 months later that I met him. And so for fun, I thought, years later, I was looking her up, seeing if she was still around. Finally was able to find her. And I did do a reading with her about, now it's been probably a couple of years. And she just loved it. It was so fun for her because it was so long ago. And she says, I mean, I don't remember the reading. I'm like, I didn't expect you to, but I want to tell you, you really helped me, because she was one of the psychics, I would say, that really helped me, because I was starting to get stuff clairaudiently. And I remember her saying, your guides are feeding you as fast as you will take it, the information. You need to just go out and start practicing and start doing it. She was one of my biggest cheerleaders. And so that's why I wanted her to know that. And just about my husband, it was really fun. So I totally get the And I love it too. Yeah. When people give me back some validation of things, and it's really nice. So thank you for doing that. We do appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we do. And it's so funny. I mean, when my logical mind takes over and I'm like, how does this even happen? you know, but it does. And it can happen to a lot of people if you just are open to it. I personally believe we all have that capacity.
Definitely.
You just don't always want to hear it and tune into it. So,
Yeah.
so this is really more the norm than the exception.
Yeah. Agreed.
But all that said, I use the metaphor of we can all pick up a pen and doodle or do something with it. That doesn't make us all an artist.
Yeah. True.
Okay, so Daphne sent us a plethora of questions, and as always, Daphne, we are so grateful. They are just sometimes they're just. I'm like, God, I never. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I've thought about that. Sometimes I've never thought about that. And so we're gonna just start working through them. To be honest with you, I don't know that we'll get through them this time, and then we'll just hold over for next time. And the same with Janae sent us one a little bit after Daphne, and so Tammy and I we read it and we just felt like we needed a little bit of a clarification as to the last part of your question, which it's not a big secret because you posted it on our comment section, but you just wrote, and can you discuss what it means and how things will start to look in the 3D? And so I'm assuming you're meaning the third dimension, but we're kind of in the third dimension now. So I'm a little unclear as to what you're asking. So if you could clarify that, I would.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah, because Age of Aquarius, even I don't know a whole lot about, but we'll open up to it. But yeah, that would be great. Janae, if you don't mind, just a little bit more, I guess, detail or information as to that. So we're happy to look at it for you. Thank you for sending.
We got a ton. Here we go. So okay, happy we were both doing well. Thank you so much and got over the virus. Boy, are we ever. And happy New Year to everybody out there if we haven't already said that. Okay, so number one, if there's more, let's just alternate. I'll start with number one, you go to number two.
Sure.
See where we go. Okay, if there's more than one source, then what does it mean that we are all one? I always thought that we were all one because we all belong to the same source. Let me read that again. If there's more than one source, then what does it mean that we are all one? Let's stop there and pick that apart.
So what that I wonder too about, Daphne, is if you're saying this because you heard us say that there's more than one source, it's almost like you're picking up from that, maybe that thought.
That's what I got too.
Did you? Okay, because okay, did you want to start with that, Julie, or who started?
Well, I think so. So so here's what they're saying to me. So we are all sources, and I'm going to give you the visual that they gave me. We are all sources. There are different vibrational sources. We are a projection in the human form of a source, a supreme being. Will say, I don't like that phrase. That's mine. I'm just going to tell you, they are saying that there are lots of higher intelligence and vibrational beings. Doesn't make them supreme. And a lot of the information comes from them, through them, to us. Now, we are the human personification of that. And so the visual I was going to give you, and then I'm going to go into something else, is that use the picture of a screen door or drops in the ocean. There's a big, the big one, like the big ocean, and there's lots of drops that make up the big one. So we as humans in the human form make up a source, a projection of a source. And then there's the non-physical part of that source that has access to more information, a higher vibrational level than we as humans do. but we're all one and the same. So we're all part of the ocean. We're all part of the screen door with the little holes. We're all part of the same. But just like humans, there are some that are more intelligent than others. There are non-physical beings that have different information. Again, we're not going to say more intelligence. It's just different information. When I open up my records to do this work, I bring in the masters, teachers, and loved ones of myself and the universe, as well as the lords of the Akashic records. So the lords, that is an example of another non-physical source of a much higher vibrational level. So there are many sources. Just like you go to the library, there are many books that make up a lot. Oh, we could just keep going with metaphors. So yet both can be true at one time. Both can be true at one time. Does it, and then she says, does it mean all of all the different sources also have their own source? It can. I'm going to read it again. Does it then mean all the different sources also have their own source? It can. We are also sources for them. So that is how we are kind of all one and the many at the same time. Oh, I'm stopping there. You go.
Any question, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So is there one source, guys? Source, God. Is there one God? I'm going to call it God only because then some people understand that. I refer to as source often, but is there one God source? Wow. Okay, what I'm hearing is there are many in the same vibration. So similar to what you're saying. I didn't expect to hear that necessarily. There are many in the same vibration. They liked how you described it, Julie. And okay, so I will go further with then, what does it mean that we are all one? It's still all the same. But there's they're showing me this bright shining light, which is what we would kind of think of as the God source. That shines throughout the universe, is what I'm hearing. And it's like it's the umbrella. That's what they're showing me. It's an umbrella. And then there are the different, there's the different beings in a sense that work through in their own way under this very strong, vibrant, loving umbrella. So when you say that we are all one, yes, we are indeed all one, you see, under this big, strong umbrella. We're part of that umbrella. However, that's what they showed me was an umbrella. So I'm going to go further though, that I always thought that if we are all one, because we all belong to the same source, but there is more than one source, does it mean then that all different sources have their own source? They're showing me, for me, one source, they're pointing to the umbrella. It's just that everybody's sort of dabbling a little bit differently under that umbrella and learning differently. So that's what I'm getting. I'm not going to even go further with that because I think they, from what I'm getting, just went to what that question was that you're asking. We hope that makes sense.
So we're going to give you a little bit more clarity on our side too. So when you think of God, or as we have identified God on planet Earth, you see it as one source, but there are so many possibilities in the unseen that there can't possibly be just one source. But from a perspective of human and what you see on planet Earth, you think of it as only one source and then filtering down from there. And there's nothing wrong. We're not saying it's right or wrong, okay? it's kind of in an interesting conversation that Tammy and I were having about dimensions right before we came on, how I see dimensions at, well, probably shouldn't get into this, but there's space between the space, and that creates other possible dimensions. So we'll come back to that with Janae's question. However, what they also told me was you connect to the source that you need to connect to answer the questions and get the help you need. And that could be the source that you think of as God or Allah, or I don't know the other names of them, to be honest with you. But there's a variety of names that encompass God. Now, when I think of source, I think of it a little bit differently. So, not to be hair splitting about it, but I think that's where a lot of confusion can come in. So I'm splitting hairs, I think. God, source, creator, they all are sources. They all are sources. And now they said to me, a rose by any other name is still a rose. Because there are different sources, and there are different sources, and you tap into what you need to get what you need to fill your soul, to give you faith, to answer your questions. So I'm going with that. I think we're both right.
Yeah, and sometimes Julie and I will have different perspectives of it, just the way that our guides are kind of giving it to us. So,
Exactly. It's both. It's not either or. It's both.
Because what I find sometimes is that information that can come through, there isn't always one answer to it, one steadfast answer to it. So this is, I think, one of those.
For sure. And I think that there's a lot of interpretations.
Yeah.
So maybe we either muddied the waters or cleared them up for you, Daphne, or a little bit of both.
Yeah.
All right.
And not to worry. That's what I just get. Not to worry about it.
Yeah. You just ask and you'll get, and we're sources. We're channeling sources for you. So there are a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it just depends on the perspective, the circumstances, the context, there's a lot to go into here. So, all right, you want to go to number 2?
Sure. So number 2, changing subjects. I'd like to ask about parent-child relationships. I noticed that a large part of growth is to have independent thought rather than follow along with whatever religion, culture, and parental mindsets given to us as kids. A pattern I am seeing is that parents want to have control or say in how their adult kids lead their lives. The adult kids move out and away to be free of the parental control. Parents with a lack of control sometimes become critical of their adult kids. And true, some do, some don't, some do. It gets harder and harder to live alone when aging. Historically, in did I skip something? The problem is, I did. So, whoops, I left my eyes. Okay, from the thing. Okay, so
adult kids.
Yeah, thank you. Adult kids then create larger and firmer boundaries and or visit less to maintain those boundaries. The problem is in all this is as parents age, they need more support.
Oh boy.
So yeah, so right away you're thinking, yeah, it's like, wow, that doesn't make sense, right? But it gets harder and harder to live alone when aging. Historically, in many cultures, the elderly live with their adult children. In modern days, that happens less and less. My question is, how can one balance taking care of elderly parents while creating firm boundaries with them, especially in the case where the parents need to move back in with the adult children? Let's start with that question.
Boy.
And I'm referring to you on this because Julie's all about boundaries, and she's, written some things on boundaries, and she,
so Julie wrote a book.
Yeah, there it is.
And honestly, I'm going to say I would encourage you to start with the book because it is all about a variety of different boundaries. And um, kind of, we were having this part of this conversation before we came on too, about what do we do with it? Well, my parents are both gone, but I don't want to say anything for Tammy, but we all, many of us have to deal with this, and then I think, well, what about my daughter? And I think I'm on my I think I'm on my own. So that's maybe too much information, but it's a hmm, it really is all about boundaries and growth. And if you don't set boundaries for yourself, and you can do this with love, there is no thing, there's nothing in this world that says you have to be mean, angry, um, belligerent, controlling in your own to set boundaries. And honestly, I set out a 6-step system for that. I mean, it's a good book for that. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say, go get the book, right? Um, and it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, and especially with family. So I'll just share that I had a conversation with my sister, and I walked away feeling not good about it. And I really thought it's very long involved. It doesn't matter what the evening was about, but I walked away and I thought, what do I need to do to change the situation to feel better, and so that she feels better, right? Because we all want to feel better about it. That's just the bottom line. We love our parents, they love us. Yes, they still are your parents and they still want to think of you as their child. Um, and that's education. You have to continue to educate them and say, I know you love me. I'm an adult. I've been living as an adult for a lot of years. I know how to do it. It's like driving a car. Doesn't mean I won't make mistakes, but they're my mistakes to make. So a lot of conversations, and even especially in other cultures, they may be resistant to that. um, Probably will be resistant to that. And you have to keep plugging away with love. You repeat a lot. You learn to repeat a lot. If you think you're going to say something once and they're going to get it, let me just set those expectations now for you. And mostly this is coming from me. I will defer to my guides in a minute. So they're like, oh no, you're doing fine. Keep going. Okay. So it's a process. It is a process, and it's one that many of us will struggle with. And so keeping the lines of communication open, asking them for other possible solutions. So nobody's dictating. It's like, you were independent. You wanted to be independent. Well, I want the same independence. So how can we do that together and allow each other to have our own independence? It really is, short of somebody having dementia and they can't make those decisions for themselves. If they can carry on and have uh, a lucid, intelligent conversation with you, and it's just them having to deal with the change, which is really hard for people as they age. It's hard for most people, but as they age, it gets harder. It means more conversations. So having other community. Okay, so here's what they said. Oh, you need to love yourself enough to do what's right for you. It may not feel comfortable to them, and you have to do what's right for you. And hopefully you'll find some common ground that you both can live with. But this is your life now. And you're an adult, and you need to keep reinforcing that for them. It's my life to live. I know you love me. Let me make my own choices unless I come to you. And there's a lot more, again, find it in my book. But truthfully, having community is, of course, hugely beneficial, right? She says, is it better to have more community-based family living situations or more nuclear-based ones? I think they're saying that's a really personal choice as to what you can all live with.
Mhm.
Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of conversations, whether they like it or not. That's the short version of that.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed, Julie. That's what was coming in for me that whole time is definitely having the communication, setting the boundaries initially. What they kept showing me also is try to bring humor into it whenever possible to lighten it up. Like Julie was saying, love, come from a place of love when you're having the conversations, but from the get-go, they're saying you want to set the firm boundaries as to what your expectations are, ask them what theirs are. uh, uh, you might preface it that I know you're my mom, you're my dad, but I know that sometimes I feel like, and go into what it feels like, and then you can gently start setting the boundaries that for us to be able to live together, this is something that's really important to me that I need to talk about and that we can have an understanding. So can't emphasize enough, like Julie's saying, communication over and over again. It'd be no different than if I had a child that had moved out, wanted to move back in, and let's say that child does not do things the same way I do in the house, whether they're just messy and I'm neat or vice versa, whatever. Um, I would I would absolutely have conversations. I would absolutely have conversations of expectations for me. And I would probably reference it to, they'd be no different if I had a roommate moving in right now. I would be very particular about certain things to be a good match. And in all fairness, you're coming into my home, regardless if you're the parent or not. And these are things that we need to talk about so we can coexist happily. And again, you can laugh at some things. They also said, there's going to be slip ups because your parent is your parent. They can't help, for all those years they've been, looking over you and watching over you and being able to say exactly what they feel and what you should be doing. Um, and so you have to also understand that they're, to be able to, kind of the saying, not take things so personally, but be prepared for a bit of that, but you can gently bring them back around again, maybe with humor at that point. Um, and slipping that in somehow. But and I agree with that second part of that question too, Julie. It's kind of a really personal decision, really, community versus nuclear, because they're all going to be, it's going to be different. It's just kind of a different vibe for each. So
And I think, oh, you know what they said? Yes, yes, yes to everything Tammy just said. They said to me, when your parents, and maybe your parents didn't say this, I know you come from an Asian background. I don't know, or culture. I don't know how that works, but I, I just remember, it's very common saying, my house, my rules, right? As adults would say to their kids. And now you're saying your rules. So it's my rules, your rules, and our rules. If we're all going to cohabitate, we have to really discuss what those rules are, because otherwise I can't grow, right? I mean, you did your job. You did your job as parents. I'm really grateful for that. Right? Let me grow as an adult. So, but it comes back to expectations right off the get-go.
yes.
It it's so funny. The funny things that come through, I remember I must have been in my late 20s, early 30s. My daughter was probably, I don't know, 8, 9, something like that. And I remember my father would pick her up every day from school, because that's the way it was, right? I couldn't get off work to go do that. They didn't have, anyway, that's the way it was, right? And then every Friday night we'd stay for dinner. And then I remember my father so many times saying to me, so do you want peas? And I'm like, oh my God, Daddy, I hate peas. How many times do I have to tell you I hate peas? Oh yeah, yeah. You have to tell them over and over and over and over again. Don't take it personally. It's just, it's imprinted on their brain a certain way. And now you have to create new neural pathways for them and new brain pathways. So it's, you kind of just got to laugh sometimes, you know? Yeah, I've only told you 500 times how much I hate peas, but you know, okay, I'll tell you again. I don't hate peas.
And,
So,
the laughter diffuses too. It really diffuses the situation. You know, if it's getting kind of, you know, and just say, oh, you know, oh, mom, I know you love me and I know you can't help yourself even, you know, by saying that. But you see, this is how I feel when you're telling me this. And you're still saying it with just that kind of demeanor and that kind of, you know, energy. And it brings you, what they show me is it brings you back together. It brings you back together there.
right,
So,
100%.
yeah.
And if you're angry in the moment, walk away,
Mhm.
identify what you're angry about. I'm angry because they're treating me like I'm a child. And that's when you come back, you've let it out, don't let it out on them, and just come back and say what Tammy said. It was perfect.
And
And
yeah,
how can we solve it together?
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting when you said that, that was a good point about like, if you're angry and you walk away and then, gosh, you're treating me like a kid. Okay, they were just saying to that because that's a really good point. Is that, you know, that's a trigger obviously for you, and so you need to kind of remind yourself you're not that child anymore at that moment. You know, you're not in that seat anymore, but you were triggered. We've all been triggered before, you know. And so really kind of they're almost saying almost like a, you know, at that point you got to get over yourself a little bit and get to what that is really about. So it's you're not that anymore. And so you really kind of, you know, reframe your thinking back into, you know, okay, I'm an adult. How can I just approach this and talk about it?
I'm
Um,
telling you, Daphne, if you don't have my book already, I talk about expectations and triggers and compromise and all, and give you examples of things to say. Truly, truly, it should be a bestseller.
it's a great certainly a great topic for sure, right? Yeah.
Yep. And how to say no in different ways. So that's my thing I'm going to land on.
Yeah.
So I think we're
Get Julie's book.
what?
Get Julie's book. Gonna help.
You can get it on Amazon. All righty. So are we, I think we're
I,
trying to keep it to about a half an hour now, you know, because we're hoping that you watch what you need, but watch the whole thing.
yeah.
We're
Well,
just trying to figure out our,
yeah.
because we think 30 minutes is right. You've told us that's right about the right amount of time. So, all right. We do have lots of questions for next time. And I'm thinking to Tammy, maybe we come back next week, but don't hold us to it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Kind of see what's on my calendar. But anyway,
Yeah, we can discuss.
yeah. So Daphne has given us a whole lot of other questions, and then we'll have hopefully more clarity on Janae's. And if there's some other questions, we're looking forward to having them. So I guess that's it for now. And we're two psychic moms. And how else do we want to close this? I don't even remember now.
I'm just opening up here for a second, see what we get. They just said, makes me emotional for some reason. They said, the time is now for you to start getting going on what you want to do. They just went like this now, but it feels very emotional to me as well. So, you know, sometimes you get those messages, right? You hear that no time like the present to get started. Basically, that's what they're saying, but they pop that in, and I always really put a lot of faith in what my guides say. And when they give a message, they just want to remind the collective here, yes, that's okay. That's the message that I'm getting.
I remembered there was something I wanted to share. And so I put it in my photos because I took pictures of what came across through the news to validate something. So I'll be very quick about this. So the first thing was, if you remember, my guides had said that that this first quarter of this year was going to be very full of prosperity in terms of the stock market. Doesn't mean there's not ups and downs, right? It's a stock market. But so I saw this on as this headline that came through. And if you remember, even if you don't, I'll tell you, back in April is when I first started channeling publicly. And we were already now in lockdown from the pandemic. It was April of 2019, no, 2020. And they said it's going to be 3 years till we're back to where we are pre-pandemic, right? So today, so the headline that came through, and it was today, it says S&P 500 gains on Tuesday as it heads for best January since 2019.
Yeah.
All right. And so I'm just telling you, I like the validation. I'm not going to lie about it. So, and then the second thing was that came through also today was it says there was a question. These are like news summaries. Is the pandemic over? Most Americans have been vaccinated and life is largely back to normal. But, you know, there are still people that aren't and are dying. But I wanted to highlight things are largely back to normal. So here we are. We are at the end of year 3, and COVID will be with us. It's just going to be with us. I don't want to say forever, but for the foreseeable future, we will just learn to manage it as we do other viruses. But we're generally back to the normal bickering and politicization of crap, and that's going to get worse. Oh boy, is that going to get worse. So, oh, and so Daphne, those questions are about all that, and so we'll tackle that next time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thanks so much, as always, for sending in the questions. Keep them coming.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. So grateful for you.
Take care.
See you next time.